Apple Card is the credit card created by Apple. You earn 3% daily cash back up front when you use it to buy a new iPhone 15, AirPods, or any products at Apple. And you can automatically grow your daily cash at 4.15% annual percentage yield when you open a high-yield savings account. Apply for Apple Card in the Wallet app on iPhone. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility. Savings accounts by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, member FDIC. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. Some things are just better together, like party playlists and Friday nights, campfires and ghost stories, peanut butter and chocolate. And Reese's Cups are the perfect combination of creamy peanut butter and delicious milk chocolate. So, when you want something sweet, you can't do better than Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. Buy Reese's today wherever candy is sold.
Max, the one to watch for the best in entertainment, now has live sports with the Bleacher Report sports add-on.
5, 4, 3, 2, I let one go.
Stream hundreds of select live games from MLB.
That's gonna go!
NBA, NHL, U.S. Soccer, and NCAA Men's March Madness.
We just see what we think we just saw!
And it's all included for a limited time with any Max subscription.
He got him!
After the promo period, add it for $9.99 a month. Base subscription required.
Serie A Chronicles is a Serie A Chronicles production.
Mina, I can't believe it. I don't know where the time has gone. We've reached the end of the World Cup, and what an ending it was. We're recording the day after the World Cup final, and I still don't think I've fully recovered my thoughts and emotions. I can't imagine what this was like if you were Argentinian or French to watch the final. I've seen a lot of people describing it as the best World Cup final ever. I don't know if I have the perspective to say that, because of course, I mean, I started watching the World Cup in 1990, and even then I was very little, but it's probably the best one I've ever watched in my lifetime. Mina, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it was really funny because I wrote that, and someone replied to me saying, "You're trying to tell me that this was better for you than 2006?" And I'm like, no,
that's not the same thing.
No, exactly. You know, and firstly, that was a horrible final to watch because I don't know which floor I was on trying to stop myself vomiting repeatedly, you know. But I was like, in terms of this being as a completely neutral fan, where I was like, what is going on? You know, like, this is just... In the beginning, I was like, oh, this is kind of relatively boring, like in the sense that Argentina totally dominated. And then after that, I was like, I've never seen a game like this. I have never seen... also, because how often do we pit two superstars against one another, right? Like, I don't know, the big man of every team, say, and they actually both show up and equally show you the brilliance of everything that they do in that game as well.
I tweeted this last night, and it's still the thought, like, it's such a cheesy, like, football commentator, journalist thing to say, oh, you couldn't have scripted this. I mean, you absolutely could have scripted it, but the point is that this one really does feel like if you were scripting it, like if someone was doing this for like Hollywood, they would have been like, okay, so he's had his whole career, you know, he's got a coach who was playing as a teammate when his international debut. And up and through his whole career, when everyone said he's the best in the world, but he'd never even scored a single goal in a World Cup knockout game. So he's going to score in every single World Cup knockout game. And then in the final, he's going to be up against his club teammate, who everyone thinks is going to be the best in the world after him. And his club teammate is going to score a hat trick. So it's not going to be like an easy path. He's going to score a hat trick and then a penalty in the shootout as well. So you've got the rivals set up in front of you. You've got this sort of perfect sort of foil to play off. And he's still going to get it done anyway. I mean, from the Leo Messi perspective, you really couldn't have written a more perfect story, and unbelievable how both of them showed up in the big moments, in the big stage. I thought, watching it for more than 70 minutes, I thought, gosh, Mbappé hasn't been the star that we thought he was going to be. He hasn't, not as in he's never going to be big and important, but he hasn't been at this tournament, perhaps in the big knockout games, as central as we thought. He hasn't in this final. And then just the last 20 minutes of the game plus the extra time, it was like a completely different match, Mina. It was like a completely different game happened. And in that game, Mbappé was sensational.
You know what? I don't know what I was celebrating more. The fact that I put money on Argentina winning it and Mbappé being top scorer. And I was like, oh my gosh, I actually fulfilled this, you know? You know, and you just put like these little like token quid and or the fact that I'm just sitting there thinking, how is it possible? I got so lucky to witness a final in which these two guys just showed us what. And also it's differing qualities. It's like somebody at the end of their career, nearly, well, not really. Messi still has years, you know, ahead of him, and he hasn't retired from international football, but showing you what he can do at his age, what his experience has brought to him, the calmness that he's depicted and really had throughout this tournament. He, you know, when you see Di Maria crying pretty much from the start of the match till the end, yeah. And Messi, even though after all the heartbreaks, when they equalized and then they got back into it and they keep responding with goals, France, Messi didn't look shaken. Messi still looked like he had this deep, deep knowledge that they were still going to come through, yeah. And I was thinking, wow, this is remarkable, because if there's one thing that, you know, you say is, how do you recover from that emotionally so many times? When France keep hitting you with another blow, you know, you get the extra goal, you get the goal in extra time, and then they still respond, you know? And it's crazy. And it was this whole time you look over at him. And Mbappé, to be fair, who has a very great poker face. And they're both just this image of calm, image of like, we're going to get through this. We're going to find a way of getting past this. We're going to be the ones that continue to lead the team forward. And I don't know, I felt like at that precise moment, like how in God's beautiful world is this not the greatest sport?
I know. I mean, football when it's like this is just incredible, isn't it, Mina? And you know, there was a line that really stuck with me this morning. I was reading an Italian journalist writing about the game, and he talked about how winning the World Cup will make Argentinians feel like their country is the best country in the whole world, even though they know that it isn't. And that really resonated with me. Like when Italy won the World Cup, not in footballing sense, you just feel like your country is like the most important in the world, because look at us, like look what we can do as a country when we put it together. Like look what we're capable of. And of course, it doesn't actually fix all of the whatever problems might exist back home. I have no idea what problems exist in Argentina. I'm not going there at all. But of course, everyone in their own countries has their own problems. But for that moment, you feel like it's everything, like your country is on top. And, you know, Argentinians really do get to say, right now, we have produced the best footballer who lived. Like, that's how it is. Like, that's how they get to say it. And people will argue, they might say, some Argentinians might still think it's Maradona. Some Brazilians will think it's Pelé. No doubt, some Portuguese will still think it's Ronaldo. But that's the feeling they get to have. And to have it just, I don't know, crowned in this way is extraordinary.
Yeah, it's also, you become very peace and love. Like, and that stays with you for a really long time. Like, after the Euros, when I was blasting out the Italian song, driving through London, and you have people who like turn around and be like waving at you because they know what that means. And Italy's just won the Euros, and you feel like your life's made. You have no problems. You know, nothing matters in this world. Like I guess that's what football stands for. Like, you know, it's incredible how much like a country and anything that they may be going through, anything that you might be going through on a personal level as well. It's that moment in time when you get that, you feel like it's your achievement. You feel like it's
Yes.
Your happiness is being it's all we ever want to do as human beings is identify with something, right? And when it's your country winning it, most important, it's not even the same as the club, you know. But I remember I was honestly on the phone. You don't understand. The house was just insane, and the numbers just kept growing. Also, everyone was supporting someone else. Like someone was on, like we were half France, half Argentina. Everyone is going crazy. There are now other people coming in from different places and walking in to watch it with us. And it was just, I just figure out, you know, there's so many sports that we watch in the world, but how often do we do this, right? Like how often do you get to like make friends with people that you don't know that well, you know, and identify with things, and all of a sudden you feel a little bit Argentinian, or you feel a little bit French, or you'll find little reasons why you're supporting Mbappé, for example, you know, and why you want him to do well, because he's young and he represents us kids when we think this or when we think that. It was just, I'm so jealous. I kind of wish it was us who won it. You know? I'm so jealous that they get to have this for the next 4 years, that they can be like, screw you, we're best, haha. You know, I'm even jealous of France to have reached, you know, 2 finals in 2 years, 1-1, and probably will get to the next final because their team is freaking awesome, you know?
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the actual football for a minute. Like, that, you know, France, I think it was extraordinary how bad they were at the beginning, when it felt like Argentina were just in a completely different sort of quality, like a different zone, like the way they were sort of dominating everything, dominating the space. I mean, they weren't totally dominating the ball in terms of possession. It was fairly even, but it just felt like they were completely in control. They pressed where they wanted to. They attacked when they wanted to. And of course, Deschamps gets into that situation of even sort of making changes before half time, which is extraordinary. And in my head, I just kept thinking, and I've been thinking this even before the tournament, before the final, is this France's sort of come around moment for that final against Brazil where Ronaldo was sick? Is this just the illness? Is this just like, we don't know how far reaching it is, and these players just haven't got enough in their legs to deal with it after these stories we've been reading about players getting sick? And then this whole sort of second part of the game unfolds, which of course it's about Mbappé, who's sensational. And I think there's not enough things that you can say that are acknowledge how good he was, because even the 3 penalties, Mina, yeah, sure, they're penalties. He put 3 penalties in a row in the same corner of the net against a goalkeeper who's really, really good at stopping penalties, as he showed us in the shootout. Just completely unflappable. I think that's something special. The goal he scores from open play is ridiculous. I mean, it's a play that I think every single person that I've heard talking about it in ex-pro is like, every striker you hear who's an ex-pro talking about it says, oh, I would have taken a touch here. And he just doesn't. He just doesn't take a touch. He just puts it straight in a way that leaves Martinez with no chance at all. So Mbappé was ridiculous. But also the supporting acts, and I'm going this way because of what you just sort of said about the future of this team. The really, like, the players who turn this game around for France, as well as Mbappé, are Thuram, who gets the assist, and Muani, who wins the penalty. So 2 players who, they're not young, but they're mid-20s, and who have not been like the core players of this French team, and could represent a future for it.
It can't be highlighted enough just how special this player is, you know? And in a world in which we're going to lose Ronaldo and Messi, no matter what your feelings are on who's the GOAT and all of these things, and everyone's like, well, we've shut down this debate. Messi's won the World Cup.
You never shut down the debate. This idea that you can shut down a debate is ridiculous. You'll never end the debate.
No, exactly that. And just like if Ronaldo had won the World Cup, you wouldn't have shut down the debate either, you know? So this isn't about which one's better or whatever it is. It's with Mbappé and France, I just look at this team and I think to myself, it just keeps producing talent after talent. And they're never going to be a team that possesses, well, they haven't been under Deschamps, a team that has always shown you the might of their attacking potential. They actually almost, restrain themselves and play this game where they're more cynical in anything that they do, you know? They defend well, they play the moments perfectly, and then they strike when they need to. Everything is done when they need to. So there isn't this total domination of the game, if that makes sense, you know? And this Argentina side that has grown into this tournament so brilliantly, you know, that started off with one of the most shocking losses, I think, ever registered in a World Cup. to a team that no one would ever think would manage a win against Argentina and Saudi Arabia, to have disturbed a run that was spectacular for Argentina against one of the best players in the world, and then have them then play Mexico when you're like, well, it's not that great, right? Come out of the group stages sort of a little bit battered by the experience. Then there's the goal from Australia, and there's a part of you that's thinking, what's happening here? You know, you're safe, but sometimes you look very vulnerable. Performances by players like Lautaro Martinez, Alvarez comes in, things start to pick up. Argentina start to grow. They manage that performance in the semi-final, and you think they've arrived. They now really know who they are. They've figured everything out. They are playing to the moments. They are cynical. They are perfectly balanced. They are organized. They are defensively strong. They are showing you the attacking potential. And Messi is just on fire. And you think exactly the same with France. It's they've maintained their identity all along. And with this player in between them that people can criticize or not, who is still only 23 years old, contesting his second World Cup final in a row, who is nothing short of magnificent when he needs to be. And I just think, even if we do qualify for the next World Cup, like, how do we come into this team? There's too much competition, you know? We're never going to get there. Although we want the Euros, obviously, but...
Exactly. 4 years is a long time, Mina. 4 years is a long time. A lot can happen in 4 years.
Yeah, you're right about that. But yeah, and it's just, it's brilliance on every level. And I just love that people turn around and be like, this is your job? You're so freaking lucky.
Definitely, these are the occasions when it feels like it. Although I will say this, Mina, as someone who has done my share of those reports inside the stadium, this was definitely one of those occasions where I was quite grateful not to be sat there with a word count and a deadline, because when you're in there and the story keeps changing like that, you are in a state of panic. Well, maybe not panic, but high adrenaline, and you don't really get to appreciate quite how brilliant the football is sometimes, because you're trying to make sure you've got your words ready.
Actually, asking you about that, because obviously in the Euros you were in Wembley Stadium. Mm-hmm. I was doing the coverage for Sky, and all I could think in my head was, I'm crying, trying not to, being like, this is a huge moment. You know, and my phone is buzzing. I'm trying to hide it because the vibration is like coming through the microphones, you know. and you just think like, I can't enjoy it. Whereas I was really happy to enjoy this final. You know, what did you do when it was the Euro final? I don't remember if we spoke about this at the time.
I'm sure we would have spoken after. Honestly, I think in the moment you can't enjoy it. You're doing your work. You sort of are aware of what's happening, but you're aware of it in a very sort of intense way because you've got to write about it. But you don't get to connect with this sort of emotional side of it until afterwards. It is different when you're working. It is a different experience, but it's an incredible privilege. So I wouldn't ever sort of want anyone to feel sorry for me for that. It's something that's extraordinary to be there for those moments. On the Argentina side, Mina, like, there's almost like too many people. I've said the Messi bit, like Messi, he was the defining player of this tournament, even in spite of being outscored by Mbappé in the end. Incredible. But in terms of the other performances in this team, I've waxed lyrical about Alvarez before this game. He wasn't as defining in this game, but still important. Di Maria coming back, having been injured from the middle of the tournament, to score that goal, as you said, to be in tears and ride that emotional moment. Alexis McAllister. I'm thinking about someone's joke about Kevin McAllister from Home Alone earlier. Alexis McAllister of Brighton just has come on and on in this tournament and been brilliant, and had the assist on the second goal, and the goal for Di Maria, which was a wonderful team goal. And then, of course, Emi Martinez, who I think we probably need to talk about his performance in the shootout, which was a show. But his save from Muani in the last minute of injury time, that game doesn't go to penalties if he doesn't make that save.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. You've just made our producer laugh hysterically. But it's really hard sometimes to concentrate when you see his face. Sorry, Simon. But it was why I love this match so much, is because I think these two coaches have been really wonderful. In Didier Deschamps, who always gets a lot of criticism in what he does. And I can understand that first half didn't go the way he does, but his changes actually make such a difference to France afterwards. And we saw the way that they started to improve in the second half and how much that made a difference. And actually, he was making his changes in the 40th minute. he took off 2 players and took off, for example, Giroud. But it's Scaloni understanding exactly on a tactical level how to pack that midfield, how to free up the areas, how to ensure that his players were able to dominate that, and not only dominate, but take advantage of their ability to then score those goals. It was just a wonderful masterpiece from Scaloni. And for a coach who has now won the Copa America, who has won the World Cup, who has made Argentinians feel that this is a fun team to represent again after a lot of pressure, after what happened in 2016, when so many, like Messi, for example, felt at the time that he wasn't sure that he wanted to continue, that everything was always blamed on him when Argentina didn't do well. Scaloni changed so much of the way that it's viewed, as the national team is viewed, how the enjoyment being had, the emotional connection between the players, just watching his face on the sideline as well when he's realizing what just happened and he can't stop holding in the emotions. Like, for me, it's, yes, of course, the players. And you're right, Emi Martinez, we do have to kind of discuss what happened in the penalty shootout. I mean, I don't know what to make of it, because there's a part of me that's like, I love the shithousery of it all, yeah. But then there's another part of me that's like, come on, dude, that's a bit mean, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's he absolutely should have been booked for throwing the ball away, and I think
he did. He was booked.
Was he?
Yeah. Okay,
well, he certainly pushed the line of what's allowed, and I'm fascinated by the mental aspect of penalties, Mina. Like, I really am, and I've said already, like, how extraordinary I think it is. Genuinely, I think are going to be like an under sort of talked about part of this story because of everything else there is to talk about. That Mbappé literally hit the same penalty 3 times and nailed it 3 times. I think that's really hard to do in high pressure situations. But absolutely, I do think there is such a clear mental part of penalty shootouts in big moments of tournaments. And some players like talk about it. Like, of course, Andrea Pirlo famously talked about the chip with Joe Hart and being like, he was making such a big scene on the goal line. I wanted to make him look silly. Like, I wanted to make him look small with that Panenka that he scored against him at the Euros. And that being like a deliberate sort of mind game almost. And going back to the Euros, the most recent ones when Italy knocked out Spain, that whole show with Chiellini at the handshake, like, that stuff matters. It does. Like, it all matters when it comes to these moments. And in this shootout, Martinez putting on a show, I think it mattered, as did the extraordinary audacity of Messi's penalty that I've watched it a few times now. When I watched it in real time, I was like, I'm not sure you didn't just get lucky with that when I saw it the first time, because if Lloris is more confident, that's such a slow penalty. But he really does lead Lloris and wait until Lloris is quite a long way to that side. Maybe it's a good penalty. I'm not sure, but I think the impact of it, the nonchalance of it, once it's gone in, is probably another little psychological moment in this battle. Like, oh, okay, yeah, like, I'm going to do it this way, and that's how confident we are.
One thing of the game that I really like that people sort of hate and want to abolish is the dark cards, or it is this exact thing. But I actually think it's so important to the game, because at the end of the day, you're not just playing football, you're also playing the opponent. You're also trying to figure out their emotional and what provocations and how you can provoke them into mistakes, how to psychologically get the best out of them. And I think that winning that battle is a separate battle, and I want it to happen because it makes for a better show, a better spectacle to us as an audience, to us as the spectator. Part of the reason why I love watching Italian football so much is because it's so much about that, you know? It was so much about, for example, for me growing up watching Del Piero, you know, fall in all the right places to get the free kicks and to delay the time, you know, and stretch it out as much as possible. And the great work of Mauro Camoranesi in doing exactly the same thing when you needed him to do that, you know? But it is that. It's also penalty shootouts are not about your ability as a player, right? It's just about how you can cope under the pressure and how you can still deliver, and what the opponent and the goalkeeper will do. Totti in 2000, right? In against the Netherlands with that Kukiayo. Like, it was just like, my God, if there was anything better to watch in your lifetime other than that penalty, and you think, thank you so much, you know, for that perfect penalty that makes you almost feel like your country's perfect again because of one damn penalty. it is important. And so I think that even though we may not like, people may not like it or say it's this or say it's that, if I'm Argentina, I want to give a medal to that guy.
Well, he got more than that. He got the Golden Glove, which he treated with particular audacity. I mean, we'll get to that moment in a second, because I think we need to have a conversation about some of the stuff that went on in general. I just wanted to sort of, I guess, have one more thought on this conversation, which is, I've spoken to Gigi Buffon a bunch of times. It's been one of my great sort of privileges. I've been very lucky in my career to have a number of sit downs with him. And a theme he's come back to a lot of times is that he thinks an essential element for a goalkeeper is a bit of folia, a bit of madness, a bit of foolishness. And for me, speaking personally, I think we talked about this at the start of this World Cup. Like, Walter Zenga was kind of my first like World Cup player I remember, because he was so out there. And so for me, you know, those experiences, Buffon's perspective, I think Jimmy Nielsen said something similar when I interviewed him for his autobiography, another goalkeeper, this idea of like, you've got to be a bit mad to go in goal. Martinez embodied that in this game in a way that I enjoyed a lot. And I think certainly his persona helped them win that shootout. I think it did spook France's penalty takers enough. And that was, in the end, well, that's how they won the game, isn't it? They won the penalty shootout. So,
Nicky, if you played the game, would you be a goalkeeper? Because you seem to love them.
No, I'm not nearly patient enough. You have to be very patient, I think, to be a goalkeeper. You have to stay back there and be okay with nothing happening for a long time. I did play a bit of football when I was younger, not well, but I played football, and I mostly ended up in defence, which I always thought was a suitably Italian thing to do in my head.
Was your brother, who was the more English one, as you said before in our last one, was he an attacker?
He was more of a midfielder, I think, but I think he was one of those midfielders who wanted to be an attacker. You know, he was one of those players who would have liked to play up front but wasn't good enough, so you end up in midfield. That's cruel, but it's true, I think, in football. Like, when you're young, scoring is hard. It's probably the hardest thing to do in football, so the best players often do get the chance to go up front. Mina, we should probably do a very quick, since we are normally the Serie A Chronicles, Italian Serie A players who are in this game. One of them, Paulo Dybala, I was messaging you about the second he came on. I was like, Mina, you can't bring Dybala on for a shootout.
I love that me and Dybala are just one and the same with you. Anything.
Absolutely. I can't see Dybala without thinking about Mina now. That's just like, it's become hard-coded into my brain. Like,
as soon as Dybala steps onto the pitch, whether it's for Roma, whether it's anything else, anything that's going on in the Europa League, anything that's happening in the World Cup, there's a message from Nicky going, hey. and by the way, can I just also say to our audience here, Nicky was quickly, by the way, the confidence shown, yeah. I think it must have been the 20th minute of the game, okay? And obviously Argentina scored a goal. And Nicky was right on there being like, I think you should get the audio clip where I predicted that this would happen in Argentina.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I was right in the end.
And I thought to myself, the sheer arrogance of this, wait a second. And our producer comes back and being like, let's see what happens in the second half. Yeah. I, of course, then watching Mbappé equalize, and I'm ready to go onto DMs and be like, listen.
There's a part of me that thinks it'll be Argentina just some way, somehow, because Messi's going to win one. Like, it's just like, this is like, it's going to happen. Messi will win a World Cup. I know, you know, he's not the Messi of a few years ago, but he's played pretty well recently. And Messi will do Messi things at last at a World Cup, and they'll win one.
I found that hilarious, by the way, so I just felt like people needed to know. And you were like, see, I told you guys, but, you know.
I successfully predicted the Euro 2020 winner before the start. I successfully predicted the World Cup winner. As I said on Twitter, I'm just waiting for someone to give me the Paul the Octopus gig where they come to my house every day and offer me 2 lunches to choose from, because that would make life much easier, honestly.
Okay, there's a few questions I have on my personal, life in general. I'm going to ask you to tell me which direction to take, because you can predict things, you know.
It's tied to a lunch, though, Mina. I want a free lunch.
Okay, I swear I'll do it with the free lunch. But yes, Dybala and his penalty. I just thought, in my head, I was thinking, oh my God, he's going to come on. Like, he's come on to take a penalty and he's going to miss the penalty. And, you know, all I kept thinking about is some of the penalties that he missed for Juventus. Not the ones he scored, but the ones he's missed, right? And I'm thinking, I forgot that this guy's even on the Argentina team. Yeah, like I've forgotten about his existence. Meanwhile, you know, Lautaro Martinez is... I'm watching this game thinking, I feel so sorry for Lautaro Martinez. Although there's a part of me that thinks Inter right now is pretty happy that you know, that he hasn't, I don't know, blown out the way that other players have, like Amrabat, for example, and they have to deal with lots and lots of offers for him. So it's Lautaro Martinez's performance. It's Dybala coming on for the penalty. And I'm thinking, Serie A stars, Paredes, who obviously had that whole thing against the Netherlands when he provoked the bench and hit the ball at them and seemed to be very, very angry again and always there almost to incite some violent scene or something in the middle. And I'm thinking, Serie A stars not really doing all that well for Argentina in that sense. But then he does deliver the penalty, and Lautaro Martinez obviously scored the very important penalty that puts them through in the knockout stages as well. And yet there's a part of me that's like, I don't know how good of a penalty that is. And I think you agreed.
I hated it. I think he just got away with it because Lloris didn't do the right thing, I guess. I watched them both back this morning to try to sort of assess, because at the time I was like, with Messi and Dybala both, I was like, oh, I think there's a lot more confidence in Messi's penalty. When you watch it back, Messi really is waiting and reading and reacting. I think it can still go wrong because he does hit it really softly. And I think a more nimble keeper might still get to it, even though Lloris starts off the wrong way. But Dybala's penalty, I'm not convinced it has the same amount of sort of reading and cleverness to it. It's just straight down the middle, which gives me incredible anxiety. But it worked. It worked. And, you know, I was thinking, I said this to you just before we started, Mina, like Lautaro had, it felt like a not good cameo in this game. He missed some chances that could have won the game before the end of extra time. But in the end, it was still his shot that gets blocked that allows Messi to score the goal that puts Argentina 3-2 up. So even in his, I thought, bad performance overall, his shot was fundamental. Like, he played a role that allowed Argentina to win this tournament.
I don't know, to allow them to win this tournament might be going far.
Well, they probably don't win without that goal, right? Well, who knows? Because, of course, if they don't score it, you don't know what France do next. But it was 2-2 at the time.
No, you're absolutely right about that in that sense. Here's the thing with Lautaro Martinez, you know, when he's on, he's bloody on and he's wonderful to watch. But when he's off, it really is like a psychological downfall, and he tries so hard to get back into it, but it's either long periods of nothing or long periods of absolute beauty. And that's kind of what you get a lot of the time with Lautaro Martinez. And again, he's still young, so I feel like sometimes when you pile the pressure on, because we see players like Haaland and Mbappé do it at a very young age, or Bellingham, or, you know, Pedri, or whoever you want to say, that we expect so much and so much brilliance consistently, but for some players it just takes a little bit longer for them to provide that. Meanwhile, in the French side, I watched Rabiot in the first half, and I thought, you're going to need to do better than that, kid. You know, like, you need to stand your ground. Like, this is just, Theo Hernandez couldn't even keep hold of the ball at this point, you know, and I was like, this is a disaster. Like, it's just become so easy for Argentina. And obviously, tactically, their game plan was working to perfection. But it was just seemed like France couldn't string two passes together. But obviously, with the changes made, you know, Randall, Kolo Muani, who's just spectacular when he came on, frankly speaking, and Rabiot took a little bit more of a hold in midfield, really improved his performances in the second half. And actually, on that level, the Serie A stars were somewhat better for France than they were maybe for Argentina, except for Giroud, who didn't have a chance to really show you in the second half or anything like that. He was taken off. I go back in this and I think it's a remarkable achievement for a team that had so many players missing. And even with all the players missing, it's remarkable, because how many of them were actually sick and had to play because there weren't that many alternatives, and exhausted. And, well, obviously Argentina is exhausted too, but they had a full squad really to choose from. So this is what worries me in the future, because I just don't know who can topple France. But when it came to Serie A stars, I have to say, you know, you think Rabiot's doing it for Juventus and he's been magnificent, but he's doing it for France as well. And I can't believe the season that he's having. He's just improving and improving. And it's really great to watch. And it's just a shame that this is the final year of his contract now. And I how much my feelings have changed between summer and now on this one player.
Absolutely. I wonder if we'll be talking about him on the Sky Sports transfer show we're both going to be doing next month, Mina. Is there anything else from this match that you think we haven't covered off? I want to talk about the post-game stuff with you because I know there's some interesting things happen, but is there anything from the game itself that we haven't talked about that you wanted to talk about?
No, I did want to say, like, how much of Serie A's influence is in that game, you know, not just in the players who represent the team, but even some of the, you know, the fact that Scaloni was somebody who did play, and for Lazio, for example, who was somebody who started out as a scout for Atalanta, and Didier Deschamps, who forged his name at Juventus as a coach. Like, I kind of like that being on show and that being the tactical battle, because for me, I do really feel like the two best coaches in the competition, we got to see their chops at the end. So just in that level, I'm obviously a scout isn't, you know, for Atalanta is not the same as, you know, getting your coaching chops. But anyway, I'm thrilled for him. I'm thrilled for Scaloni. I thought that what he did was just marvelous on a tactical level.
Completely agree with you. And what a story again. Like, when Messi starts his international career playing alongside Lionel Scaloni, to come full circle like that is amazing. One thing that has happened in the last few days that we haven't talked about, Siniša Mihajlović passed away. Unbelievably sad news. His battle with cancer has been such sort of big news in Italy the last few years. I'm sure I don't have to go back through it with everyone, but he was diagnosed with leukemia. He got briefly, it felt like he had he was given the all clear by doctors, then it returned. He's been in and out of hospital. He also was sacked by Bologna in September. His mark on Italian football will last forever. He is the joint all-time leading scorer of free kicks in Serie A alongside Andrea Pirlo. Did it in about 150, 200 fewer games as well. So without question, one of the greatest free kick takers Italian football has ever seen. As a manager, such a force of personality. He did save Bologna from relegation the first season he was there. The impact he had on his players' lives, what they meant to him was very, very clear. He was himself a complicated character. I want to talk about complicated politics, the sort of things he's said, the people he's had relationships with have been the source of controversies that are far too big to go into right now and here. But I think without question, someone who was just hugely impacted by his own start in life, being born, growing up in a part of the world which was immediately sort of thrown into conflict with the Croatian War of Independence, formed him as this very sort of tough, resilient individual who went on to really make a mark on a lot of people's lives in Italian football, and he will be missed, I think, is probably as much as I can say right now. Mina, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
No, that's so well said, Nicky. I don't think I should add anything to that. You know, I mean, it was devastating to hear because of just what he represents to really everyone who has followed Italian football, especially. You could see that so perfectly well depicted in Maldini's tears, hearing that tragic news. And really, it's been horrible as well because of obviously the journalist and Mario Sconcerti also passing away this weekend. And yeah, rest in peace.
Feels like there's been a lot of loss the last few weeks. Obviously, this World Cup as well. We've talked about Grant Wall and his passing. There's another journalist. It's been a lot of sadness at the end of this year.
And not to be able to have witnessed that final, which is something he would have just absolutely loved to have seen, you know?
Absolutely. But I think that's going to be it from us for 2022. Should we finish with a quick few thank yous? We've got a few new Chronicles Tifosi we could just say thank you to before we sign out, Mina.
Sure.
So I'll say thank you to Ryan Young, Rich Soden, Julian M, and Abdullah Alawais, all for signing up to our Patreon and supporting this podcast.
And to Daniel Titalizzi, Jonathan Bond, Michael Hall, star of Dexter, and Matej Mavricek. Again, I hope you guys understand how much we appreciate your support in all of this and to signing up to Serie A Chronicles. It means a lot to us. I think that's all we have time for, but we will be back, obviously, for Serie A. Are you looking forward to everything resuming again, Nicky?
I'll be honest, Mina, and say that I'm really grateful that Serie A comes back in January rather than the Premier League, which is back on Boxing Day. I might go and watch Arsenal on Boxing Day as a fan. But as a journalist, I think it certainly feels nice to have that extra few days just to enjoy the end of this World Cup, to reflect on it, and then come back strong in the new year.
It's bizarre because, when Serie A ended in what was like a fascinating title race, and it was about the World Cup, I was like, oh, for goodness sakes, this was going so well, and it's all interrupted now and now because we've been caught up in the World Cup. I'm like, oh God, I don't know how to go back. So it's always interesting navigating all the different competitions. And anyway,
definitely.
But we shall be back. In the meantime, you can follow us on Twitter at Mina, Rzouki, at Nicky Bandini. Follow Serie A Chronicles on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you so much for listening. As always, ciao for now.
Podcast Network.
We can stop HIV, Iowa.
And it all starts with health equity.
Health equity means that everyone has a fair and just opportunity to be healthy.
To achieve this, we need to remove obstacles to good health.
Poverty and discrimination, support an environment in which HIV thrives.
We must work together so that all Iowans have access to the resources they need to prevent, diagnose, and to treat HIV.
Visit stopHIViowa.org.